That shit look crazy. Dang. Hey, good morning. Yeah, me too. I done been up, been to the gym. Uh, I done hung a couple paintings. I've been procrastinating on hanging artwork around the house because my walls are so nice and new and painted nicely. And so I just hated to fucking put a nail in it. But this morning I hung 5 paintings. Got a bunch more to go, but I don't know. I hate when I have trouble connecting to my damn speakers, man. Oh, I think I might know why. If this is still connected to it. That was the problem. I'm coming, guys. My bad. Let me do this real quick.
We're in a different time now, bro. And we all gotta do our part, man. The most valuable thing you can offer is your words. We gotta feed the old, the young, and everybody in between.
These niggas be hating on the low. I just play it cool and confident, they would never know. My intelligence is a weapon I use on them first. It take a smart man to play the fool and the rules in reverse. Dummies can never play. One of the best of my generation, but media hate me. Nigga, we grew up on Weezy and Baby Lupe and Jay-Z. That mean I shoot you, say, Miss, excuse me, get her in tune and off the cool. Can't push the old lady, yeah. I be, don't call on what they isn't. They move the goalposts for certain niggas, they not official. I know some snorters and sugar daddies as politicians. I know some corner boys that can die, try to fit tuition. Now is you mad cause my wallet, my woman, no complexion. Life can be easy, but it's never simple. And it take a real live, real nigga to tell the difference. What do it take to be a gangsta? Cause young boys on opioids never felt much. Yeah, they chasing money till they chase blood. That 10-year-old McKee dig cause y'all ain't digging up. Now the city is praying, posting her picture up. And every time I see him, I shed a tear and get really numb. Cause y'all don't hear rumble, and y'all don't want squash. And now we here as two parents buried, they only dogs. How could you kill a child when one of the codes of the streets was keeping them from that violence? It's deeper than y'all beefing, them people be out for us. If we killing our people, then we become violent. Excuse me, I got too deep. I just signed a contract and now my conscience only think free. And you can say your plot for somebody that care what you think. I've been skating a while when you try to carry it. Please, I'm about to embarrass niggas. I feel that have carried me. This industry very cold, but it look to you very sweet. Put niggas on big stages, put niggas in low beats. You put too much faith in it, it puts you in therapy. Lord, yeah. These niggas be hating on the low. I just play it cool and confident, they will never know. Cause my intelligence is the weapon I use on them first. And take a smart man to play the fool and the rules in reverse. Dummy, with your dumb ass. What? With your motherfucking dumb ass.
The tribulation, they can continue to undermine while we continue to be on pace. Whether you like it or not, we will not stop. As the soul of our ancestors won't allow us to inflict fear, but rather turn fear into fire. Olu is the three manifestations of the supreme God. Olu is king. You are the presence of Olu. Olu.
listened to this song right here like 10 times.
I got him. Hold on. I just had dinner with the Obama. What did you do? Hop up on Twitter talking about the stuff you do. Rockin' for lunch, shorty, cause that is what you gon' do. Sabi out of New Balance and styling like a go-to. God with the Pro Tools, balls in the good dude. Ball like it's good man. Watch you can come through. At the farms, I'm the city voice. At the farms, all you hear is boy. One time for BDR, we just try to see you out. I used to be with Nas, beating every city out. Why should you talking to? I'm respected by the OGs. Rappers was wearing garbage, I put them on the Supreme. I got the bars from anybody on the TV. Cause I got some pockets from Chopper City. Old time, really. Coldest in my city, coldest in my county. Who's messing with me? I was selling sneakers, I was selling CDs. Now I'm selling streams and women's dreams and meaning. I be seeing your things that used to be official. So I speak to God and tell him, please forgive me. I've been ungrateful, I'm thankful. I've been ungrateful, I'm thankful. I've been ungrateful, but thankful. I've been ungrateful, but thankful.
Maybe I got it all too fast and too soon. Living life no feelings, no rules. I've been trying to make it last, make it move.
But I'm a hopping this point and like a fool.
I've been
ungrateful, I'm thankful. I've been ungrateful, I'm thankful.
Lord forgive me, I've been
ungrateful, but thankful. I've been ungrateful, but thankful. Don't be no we focus. Roll with me, get your dough up. In the city with Dizzy, that's all of me like I'm Booker T. Honestly, I'm a champion, I am dabbing to no one. All this capping they doing, got me rather annoying. Got me gabbing, you suckers. Ain't about to be scared. Ain't no doubt I match winner, but I got my strap in the air. And I got my head in the sky high, but I'm rather prepared. Nothing sweet on my side, they building cavities. Yeah, hold out. In my bag, in my bag, in my go-yard. Pop a tag, tell the store. Tell the cab, that's my bag, that's my chauffeur. This shit was bad on my bag, now it's over, so I've been ungrateful, I'm thankful. I've been ungrateful, I'm thankful. I've been ungrateful, I'm thankful. I've been ungrateful, I'm thankful.
Maybe I got it all too fast and too soon. Living life no feelings, no rules. I've been trying to make it last, make it move.
But I'm a hopping this point and like a fool.
Maybe I've been
ungrateful, I'm thankful. I've been ungrateful, I'm thankful.
Lord forgive me, I've been
ungrateful, but thankful. I've been ungrateful, but thankful. In my bag, in my go-yard. Pop a tag, tell the store. Tell the cab, that's my bag, that's my chauffeur. Cause thing was bad on my bag, now it's over. All I had was you. Can't go. Even when I'm wrong, and when I'm right, I'm wrong. Even when I'm wrong, and when I'm right, I'm wrong. Even when I'm wrong, and when I'm right, I'm wrong. I've been ungrateful. I'm thankful. In my go-yard. Pop a tag, tell the store. Tell the driver that's my bag, that's my chauffeur. Messing with me, no.
I've been ungrateful and thankful. I've been ungrateful and thankful. I've been ungrateful and thankful. And I know fiends who used to be the shit. That's why I say, please, Father, Lord, forgive me.
Ain't no time to make up, ain't no time on that hoe. I gave you with an A cup. Thank you for your services and voicing on my haters. Be sure to leave your armor and your woman penetrated. I give her back a hater. Who get out of here? I say congratulations, your old lady penetrated. You nigga lazy, my boy. Why you hating, my guy? You wanna come back or something? She come and play with y'all, huh? I'm far from a popular artist, one of the hardest, no less. And I saw your woman, I call her low like a car, nigga swear I call her whatever you want. I got my revenue up in Beverly Hills, my skillers like the Beverly Brothers. So they want Milana, been the same one. I came up in them goals, most of them was afraid of. Now kill them won't say that, but when you wear that It's a fortune you live, gotta stay there. Don't be talking too much. These niggas got too much. These niggas cardio brave. These days they call my streets up. Fuck it, I wrote me a dozen niggas got me fucked up. I raise my hand, I raise your family's casualties up. I'm faded. My man. These niggas don't be no gangsters, they be paying. Yeah, extortion ain't dead. They just moved to the county, shoot them out that S-class. I guess you won't see the problem. I know every who I'm going, every hoodoo I'm around them. What you call a piece of money, call a picture for a bounty. Hold up, yo, I'm in my luggage, hold up. What? I'm on the runway like I'm Jackie, hold up. Prolific, really be living my lyrics. So tell me who did it, this big and who ain't about to slow up. My boy, 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 my boy.
Who gon' bring my crown? Boy, who gon' try to fuck with me? Faded off the ground, she can't get enough of me. I don't play around, got the type of luxury. It's just going down, ain't no catching up to me. Yeah, stepped in the building with my vibe on a million. Slide on me like my guy on the brilliant. All of the rappers put your mind to the side. Try to lie with the squad, turn your mind into corn on the cob. Use a prod, use a thorn in my side. I'm a knife in your back, I'm that turn of the knob on the door. When the boys from the corner come round you and tie you up to something. Now stop with all that frontin'. That big money talk should be reserved for those that got it. But when you really got it, you ain't pressed to talk about it. That's why I hear that capping on your reps and highly doubt it. The game too crowded, I'm about to get all the way the fuck about it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. 30 mil on the deal, depending on how the tour was routed. I seen your watch when you first dropped, that shit was clouded. Which means you used to fugazi shit. Make it till you make it type. I shoot through you crazy with hollow tips, no holler back, just holler raps. I got a black to make sure every dirty dollar stack. Y'all aiming for the stars, bitch, I'm aiming at your starter cap. Run, nigga, run like a fucking black quarterback. Stereotypical, but to hear me is different, so I will bury you niggas and come and air out your funeral. Have your homies on stretchers right next to Roman numerals. IVs, it's the reason why nobody try me. Having niggas screaming, Lord, why me? Cold in me, grimy. He took it too far, he shooting bullets like they Siamese. Back to back, I clap like that's a rap, but no video shoots, just hoodies and boots, putting your troops in pine boxes. I blew $1 million on white tees and Calvin Klein boxes. This nigga's silly. My boy.
Yo, J. Cole killed that shit, yo. Yo. Oh my god, his verse. I know it's Wale's song, but like, yo, J. Cole did his thing on that shit. Yo. My boy. What's up, guys? We're gonna continue working on this smoke series. Ooh. I'm gonna stay with the same colors on the palette. It's all basically, it's like not monotone, but it's the skull, the pants, and this whole outfit is very has very similar value to it. So it should be easy, since I won't have to have so many colors. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. Really, it looks like 6, but I have 4 colors, and then I have black and white. And black is technically not a color. Black is the absence of color. Well, no, white is the absence of color, and black is like all the colors. So they're not colors in themselves. So I don't really count those. So I got like 4 colors that I should be able to work with for the whole figure, if I can do it right without adding anything else to it. But we'll see. And then after I work on his clothes and stuff, I'll do the socks and shoes, of course. See, I already have red on there, but I don't know. We might, like I say, we might be able to get away without without adding any more colors. Well, maybe some brown, because his shoes are actually brown. But we're not going to try to add too much more to that palette. Work our way through the figure. Then we'll do the background. And then we'll overlay the smoke on top of everything last. And then we'll go through that process again with the finer details and the final highlights. Go over the figure, paint the background, and then have the smoke on top. So I think that's the way we're going to try to construct this piece right here, so that it does look to have that foreshortening, where it's almost that three-dimensional effect where his feet are coming at you. So we're going to really try to exaggerate upon that with the light and the aspect of the smoke, and see how it works. Yeah, that Wale song.
Hi. Hey, Dennis Quaid here again. Esurance wants me to show you how easy it is to take care of a claim with Fungal.
Children to study, and they measure their concentration levels and can actually change the applications as the children learns. But where we're headed, and let me tell you, 1 minute, is these devices are now capable of actually recording dreams, but not in a very granular way.
All of these are older videos from 2017. I'm trying to find what is new. Let's see. Let's see this.
As fall breaks out in Canada, I'm reminded of all the beauty, innocence, and gun-free fun available from our neighbors to the north.
Hey, good morning. Alright, so we're gonna try to find some more good information, some newer information on AI. Yo, Jessica, pretty good. Good morning. So my girlfriend's birthday just passed, and we're both gamers, so I got her like some stuff for I got her some PlayStation stuff for her birthday. I mean, that's how nerdy we are. It's weird like that, but anyway, while I was at the game store, this is how much of a gamer I am, yo. So I moved to a different city recently. It's not far away. It's like a sister city, 15, 20 minutes apart. The city I used to live in, went to the game store so much that, you know, the manager there, I know the guy. His name is I'm gonna just call him B. You know what I'm saying? So I got to know B really good. He was like, yo, we were cool, yo. And so when I went to get this new stuff, this was my first time going to the game store in this city. And there's like 3 of them. There's 3. I Googled like, where's GameStop? And there's like 3 different locations. And I'm like, all right, just go to the closest one, obviously. I went there. And it's been like a while since I seen this dude, yo, because he stopped working there. So I walk in the game store and I look, and I'm like, yo, is this motherfucker? Yo, he looks at me, he's like, yo, drop. I'm like, yo, B. He's like, yo, what's up? I've painted, check out my Instagram, yo. I got some old paintings of Max Payne, Heavenly Sword, Fear. I did the girl from Wet, Afro Samurai, like all of my old first shit. That's all I did, yo. It was like comic book, video games, like that's all I used to do. My mentor had to break me out of it though. He was like, he's like, you're kind of too good for that, for painting. He's like, if you're gonna be a comic book artist, do it like that. But he's like, why are you painting this? But my stuff was selling though. Like dudes, like geeky dudes was buying that shit for a couple $100. You know what I'm saying? I still got a couple of them. My Heavenly Sword piece, I still got that one. But so I'm at the game store, and I'm buying the gifts and whatever. And there's a guy in there, and we're talking about different things. So it's the manager's working, and there's another gentleman in there, and he has like one of the little palm pads, and it's looked like they're conducting business more or less, but still having a small talk conversation. And me and B are just catching up. He, you know, like, and when he rang me up, he's like, oh yeah, I forgot you guys had got 2 VR headsets. He's like, man, I'm thinking about getting one. I'm like, dude, like, it's been out for a while, and the technology, like the developers have had like more than a year to work with the hardware for these games, and it's like, it's getting better. Just like the game, any other game on PS4 right now looks better than some of the first ones that came out, because the developers, you know, understand the capabilities and the capacity of the hardware more over time, and it just gets better. And so I suggest to him, he was like, because I can get my VR headset for cheap. I was like, just do it. And the other dude was like, I don't know, I don't think it's really gonna catch on. And I'm like, yeah, everybody says VR isn't gonna catch on. And I was like, even myself, I barely play mine. I barely played it because I don't know. There's not enough games on it that I like to play or that I think would be cool enough to play. I have some really cool games, and like Resident Evil. I'll tell anybody, yo, the Resident Evil 7 Biohazard in VR, bruh, I could not finish it. It's too scary. It's too intense. I'm not like, yo. The music, the immersion, like that game is perfect. There are certain ways you need to set it up where, because how the controls they give you in the beginning are set up is kind of weird, because it's like the tank controls. But if you set it up for fluent movement, and it's like it feels like you're walking through this fucking house, yo, and it's really intense. And I never finished it in VR because there was just like some points in it that were like too scary for me. I thought I was like, it's stuff just jumping out at you everywhere, and it's like, screw this. But talking about the technology, and the guy said, oh, it's not going to catch on. And I'm like, dude, it is going to catch on. This generation here Yo, what's up, bro? I'm in my mid-30s, yo. I'm a part of the last generation that has lived more than half their life without the internet. Like, I'm pre-internet. That shit changed everything. And like, some people thought it wasn't going to change anything. Oh, what is email? What is this? This is it's everything. Radio. Nobody thought it was going to catch on. Nobody really thought television was going to catch on. Well, we have too much to do. Like, who's going to sit down and watch somebody else on a little box? Like, who's going to do that for hours? Like, man, I got stuff to do. I got kids. I got a family. I got a job. I got crops, like, and people never thought it was going to catch on, but then it did. And it's like, with the internet, it's like, what the internet has done for society in, the last 25 years. That's not even a long time, like, the last 25 years has revolutionized the way we learn, the way we interact, the way we think, the way we see the world, because we can see the world. And this next phase of technology that's about to roll out is going to be as dramatic of a change as the internet, as having the internet and not having the internet. That's how dramatic this next step is going to be. It's like having a steam engine and not having a steam engine. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm always trying to stay up on what the intellectuals in the circles are talking about and what's coming out next, because this whole 5G thing is sounding weird, and different cities are already letting these companies implement prototype setups in their area, and a lot of people are aware of what's going on and maybe the harmful effects of it. But the companies is just trying to get paid, and the more you listen to these guys talk about this 5G system, it sounds weird as hell, just because it says it can't, the frequencies can't even penetrate weather. And that's why we got to have so many, boxes and links everywhere around the city so everybody can keep a 5G connection. And you're going to have one in your home because it can't penetrate through walls. It's like, huh? Wait, is 5G going to be that? And that's, but then it's, motherfuckers are going to do it. And this whole AI thing, this is what is catching me for the past couple years, is the difference between a standard closed artificial intelligence or a narrow artificial intelligence and a general artificial intelligence. So now everybody's out here talking about AGI, artificial general intelligence. And basically people are saying like Google is the front runner for trying to build this thing or create this thing. And maybe in the next couple of years, within our lifetime, once again, there is going to be a dramatic technological change within our lifetimes, yo. So everybody always stay up on what they're talking about, especially nowadays, yo.
There's the majesty of Toronto. Vast hockey rinks. Spectacular batches of poutine. And gallons of maple syrup that you can chug openly and guilt-free. Seasons also... Not too long ago, these beings were rare and hidden away in university dungeons. But today, they flourish. They primp with instinctual grace. They wave their hands impressively to assert their intellectual dominance. They carve...
I'm trying to find that one lecture.
In the last decade, artificial intelligence has gone from a science fiction dream to a critical part of our everyday lives. We use AI systems to interact with our phones through Siri and Alexa. Cars like Teslas interpret and analyze their surroundings to intelligently drive themselves. Amazon monitors our browsing habits and intelligently serves us up products it thinks we'd like to buy. Even Google decides what kind of search results to give us based on who it thinks we are. Artificially intelligent algorithms are here, but this is only the beginning. Because in the future, AI is going to change everything. But do we want it to? Well, what exactly is artificial intelligence? Maybe a better question might be, what exactly is intelligence? The simplest descriptor is collecting data about the world and using that data to make predictions in the short and long term. That applies to both people and machines. So when we talk about AI in our lives, we're talking about everything, from a computer being able to read a handwritten document, like an OCR reader, to a robot performing complex surgery on its own. Even to a massive database, categorizing your personality based on what you've written and looked at online. Because the world of AI is so incredibly large, let's take a look at some of the most groundbreaking developments we expect to see in the very near future, and whether that's a step forward or backward for society. First and foremost, AI systems are already primed to take over thousands, if not millions of jobs. Any job that consists of a human taking down information from other humans and inputting it into a system is likely to go obsolete. So cashiers, receptionists, telemarketers, and bank tellers are all on their way out.
Y'all can see that already, because, bro, you know what? I fought against it for so long, like, self-checkout. Yo, I don't really like to check shit out, but sometimes it's like, because I'm an early bird, I be out early. If I go to the gym, I need to go somewhere and grab something, I just do it before I come to the house. But now certain places don't have cashiers until a certain time. I went in Walmart to get some stuff to make smoothies, you know what I'm saying, for breakfast. And it's like, I walk it up and down and I'm like, where the cashiers at? Oh, they don't come in till 7:15. I'm like, huh? Yeah, you gotta use the self-checkout. So y'all just gonna make me. Y'all just gonna make me use it. But that's how shit is changing. Shit is changing, yo, rapidly. And it's weird to the point where, like, motherfuckers just get acclimated to it. Because, you know what, sometimes I just be like, fuck it anyway, and just do the shit now. But I don't know, how shit is, the jobs are changing. Everything is more automated. And soon, they say they have some store in Sweden now where it's like a chip. Like everything, every item in the store is chipped. And you got your account with the store, and you got whatever card on you with the chip in it. And you walk in the store, and when you walk through the doors or whatever, it reads your chip and says, okay, this customer is in the store and they have this amount of money on their card. And you walk in there and there are no employees. It's just a store stocked with goods, like a grocery store. You get your shit and you walk out, and every item is fucking scanned as you walk out, and it deducts that from your chip. And it's like, that shit is fucking crazy. It's crazy, yo, how they're just making shit like that now. Every item has some type of RFID sensor tag on that bitch, and then you carry that shit to your house. and put it in your smart refrigerator so it can tell you when your milk is about to go bad or your bread is going to start growing mold. That shit is crazy. Self-serve. All you gotta do is, I don't know, it's weird, and everything is changing. And it's faster than people think, yo. Or it is to me anyway.
And taking down information from other humans and inputting it into a system is likely to go obsolete. So cashiers, receptionists, telemarketers, and bank tellers are all on their way out. As self-driving cars, self-operating drones, and other conveyors from A to B get more complex, we'll also lose jobs like truck drivers, postal workers, courier services, even pizza delivery. Factories are also becoming fully automated, so are car washes and movie theaters. Even my job as a journalist is threatened by rapidly improving news algorithms that can gather information and deliver it faster and more accurately. But as society changes to accommodate an all-machine service world, it'll also open up new jobs for the next generation. Writing software, repairing and maintaining robots, and developing new and better systems. Most notably, machines are also primed to take over dangerous jobs. Firefighting, mining, deep-sea oil drilling, construction, and other careers with high mortality rates will be replaced by machines that can't get sick or hurt. We don't know what an all-AI workforce will look like yet, but many economists believe that the world might be a brighter and more rewarding place with machines taking over the more dull and hazardous jobs. As we develop better AI, we're discovering that it can not just replace human labor, but also think in ways that humans can't. Algorithms that can monitor and process massive amounts of information and make conclusions based on patterns in that data are poised to change every avenue of society. Starting from something small, like optimizing traffic patterns over time to figure out the best routes to take, or how to fix roads and rebuild highways, all the way to something much more serious, like monitoring epidemics and disease and stopping them before they spread. Machine learning has even shown to analyze human behavior and predict warning signs by recognizing common language used by people like sexual predators or terrorists, and alerting law enforcement to take action. Then again, that same technology can be used to track down political dissidents or serve fake news to vulnerable people while blocking out competing opinions and information. Just a few tech monopolies control the latest breakthroughs in data collecting, processing, and analyzing. And while we may hope that AI will help advance our society, it may just end up working to benefit the tech industry and only those who can afford to take advantage of cheaper, smarter human replacements. Maybe to the detriment of society. But for now, we just don't know what the future of AI holds.
Yeah, we see this shit everywhere. You go to certain little convenience stores or gas stations now that have food and it's a little screen. Even I went to Panera and it's 2 lines and I'm standing in one line and I'm getting closer and I'm getting closer and it's like a tablet. I'm like, yeah, where the cashier at? There's like, oh, just type it into the tablet. I'm like, word? All right, Panera. But yeah, even, I mean, like, everything is changing, like, that's why I tell my son the same thing, bro. You're gonna have to have a job where you use your brain, because physical labor, that shit is gonna be done in like the next 20 years. Most companies are gonna, like you say, like the dude said, man, robots don't get sick, and they don't need vacation days or holidays, paid days off, insurance. Well, they're gonna have insurance, but robots don't need the same thing humans need, and they don't need rest and sleep. Oh, these talks are old. This from 2016.
Hello.
In 2019, hot dog, not hot dog, at the same time. Hello world, it's Siraj, and 2019 is going to be an incredible year for the AI community. I'm going to briefly recap some of the major highlights in the field from 2018, then use some of those highlights to make 10 predictions on what's going to happen in 2019. The subset of AI, deep learning, has accounted for the majority of the public discourse on AI in 2018. We've seen some incredible new applications of it so far, but let me start by stating something that might shock you. Even though I'm ethnically Indian, my mom was born in Kenya, which technically makes me an African American, but besides that, a substantial fraction of the biggest developments in ethnically Indian AI in 2018. We've seen some incredible new applications of it so far, but let me start by stating something that might shock you. Even though I'm ethnically Indian, my mom was born in Kenya, which technically makes me an African American, but besides that, a substantial fraction of the biggest developments in deep learning were more akin to tuning existing techniques versus creating qualitatively new ideas. It's been a year of refining existing algorithms, and the ones that received the most press combined deep learning and reinforcement learning together. This technique, deep reinforcement learning, enabled OpenAI's bots to defeat the world's best Dota players. It enables DeepMind's bot to beat the world's best Go player. It enables Uber's bots to beat Montezuma's Revenge. The ideas that made up these algorithms were all at least a decade old. They've just been combined in novel ways to defeat these games. The idea is that if an AI can learn how to optimize its score in a game world, it could possibly also learn how to optimize any function in the real world, which DeepMind's AlphaFold actually did later in the year by predicting the 3D shapes of proteins, enabling scientists to design new cures for diseases much more efficiently. In terms of global developer activity, the two hottest areas of AI on GitHub centered around NLP and generative modeling. It was a successful application of transfer learning applied to NLP that brought such incredible results. Transfer learning is the art of being able to apply pre-trained models to data. The pre-trained ImageNet model helped accelerate the development of computer vision algorithms a few years ago, and in 2018, Fast.ai's ULMFit, the Allen Institute's ELMO, OpenAI's Transformer, and Google's BERT did the same thing for NLP. These pre-trained models helped accelerate development. Google's BERT stands for Bidirectional Encoder Representation from Transformers. Calm down, Optimus, not you. It was a model that was built on the ideas of the other pre-trained models and redefined the state-of-the-art for 11 different NLP tasks, even surpassing human performance in the challenging area of question answering. It made learning from text data far easier for any developer, since it meant instead of lengthy training times, only minimal changes needed to be made to the existing model, which made training processes more like fine-tuning. The other area with lots of activity was generative models, models that create novel data like video or text, specifically around generative adversarial networks. So many variations of GANs were released, big GANs, progressively growing GANs. NVIDIA even used a GAN to generate an entire 3D world, which they demoed at the most popular AI conference of the year, NeurIPS. Their paper was titled Video-to-Video Synthesis. We also saw a massive growth in the size of the AI community across all metrics in 2018. Number of students enrolled in AI at universities, new online offerings like School of AI, developer activity on GitHub, conference attendance, number of AI businesses, AI memes. Global interest in this technology increased massively. And although TensorFlow is still the most popular machine learning library overall, academia started to prefer the PyTorch library. Lastly, in 2018, we saw much more of an intersection between governments and AI. Palantir helped city governments implement predictive policing technology to find the likelihood that certain individuals would commit a crime in the future. Tesla's autopilot crash caused lawmakers to consider the implications of that certain individuals In 2018, we saw much more of an intersection between governments and AI. Palantir helped city governments implement predictive policing technology to find the likelihood that certain individuals would commit a crime in the future. Tesla's autopilot crash. Palantir helped city governments implement predictive policing technology to find the likelihood that certain individuals would commit a crime in the future.
What's the problem? The Elastic has not been performing well under heat.
Well, we can't push the ship date any further.
All right, what we're going to do is we are going to cover Palantir because this is something that everybody should be focused on. You know, Q is, they got pictures of China and whatever, but I do not like looking and playing games all the time. I need to look at information and know what I'm looking at, and I can't always play these games. So we're going to look at Palantir. We're going to look at 2 articles. Here we go. Palantir, the company that knows too much. Am I my cousin's keeper? That's the question to ask in the story still emerging of Peter Thiel's Palantir, the giant private surveillance company created by a tech billionaire. Hold on, am I recording? Yeah. Created by a tech billionaire obsessed with making himself immortal and destroying his enemies in the press, is contracting with American police forces to secretly provide them with systems designed for our wars of foreign occupation that supposedly find criminals before they commit crimes, partially by mapping out family and social networks. Did I mention that the company is named after the seam stones in the Lord of the Rings that leave some of those who use them mad with...
Okay, you're gonna make shit sound really weird now.
Police in Los Angeles are trying to predict the future.
We know where crime happened yesterday, but where is it going to happen tomorrow and the next day?
And they're not alone. More and more departments are using data-driven algorithms to forecast crime.
It's all about improving accuracy and improving our effectiveness, our efficiency, and our service to the community.
When you see more police officers, you see the lights, hear the sirens, the high visibility of officers does deter crime in certain areas.
Proponents say it's helping to reduce crime, but others wonder, at what cost?
I think it targets and it just justifies, in their eyes, racial profiling.
I just really worry about the world that my son is going to enter into and become a young man in. And I don't want people to look at him and prejudge him. That could be life or death if someone calls the police on you.
The algorithm is always going to augment the system that it's in. And if the system itself is biased, is unjust, then the algorithm is going to replicate that.
Predictive policing is changing policing in your city now. And we need to start asking the hard questions about, how does it impact civil rights? How does it impact privacy? How does it impact suspects? How does it impact officers doing their job?
All right, here's how we're going to list 160.
Say you're living in Los Angeles and you just got out of prison. The LAPD could be keeping tabs on you through a program known as Operation Laser. It uses crime, arrest, and field data to determine where violent crimes are likely to take place and who will perpetrate them.
Laser predicts who will commit a crime before a crime actually happens.
Groups like the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition are sounding the alarm in local communities. They say predictive policing strategies like Laser disproportionately target low-income people and communities of color. Why do you believe that this data is subjective?
The data is subjective and the data is biased because policing practices have always impacted Black and brown and poor people. Now we have predictive policing just coming in with a veneer of science trying to tell us that it's somehow making policing more objective. But what we're finding is that it's only augmenting the way that policing operates.
The LASER program tries to predict who might commit violent crime using a point system. For example, if you're on probation, that's 5 points on your record. If you're in a gang, that's another 5. A stop by police can get you another point. The people with the highest scores in each of LA's 21 divisions are placed on a list called the Chronic Offender Bulletin.
You tally up all those numbers. Some folks end up with 2 points, some folks end up with 40 points. Those that end up with the highest number of points, we'll take a look and see where are they now.
The most troubling thing about the Chronic Offender Bulletin, it's recriminalizing people who have already been on parole, who have served their time.
It seems kind of hard to avoid police contact when that's your home and this is your history, and the contact is coming to you.
Well, not necessarily. If you live in the area and you did time and you've got a job and you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, then you're not going to be getting that constant police contact.
Police say they're just being proactive.
What we don't want is for that person to recommit another crime, go back to jail, and keep on the cycle. So we try to get ahead of it.
The problem is the public has no way of knowing who's being targeted, which is why the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition is suing the city for more information. Police are supposed to inform individuals if they're on the list, but we reached out to the ACLU, legal aid, and several defense attorneys, and none of them knew of anyone who had been contacted by LAPD.
We feel that the people have the right to know what is going on in this program. They may not know the name of LASER, and they may not know the specifics of how it operates, but I think they do know exactly what's happening, that they're being monitored, because people in the community, they speak about it. They say, you know, the officer came up to me and said, I see you, I know your brother, I got your brother, I'm going to get you.
It is one part social control, hey, we're watching you, and it's one part information collection. We are seeing who you're associating with, the car you're driving, who you're hanging out with, your neighborhood, and they're recording all of that and putting it back into a larger, ever-growing database that's used for investigative purposes.
And LASER is just one of several new smart policing strategies. Some departments are also considering drone surveillance and body cameras equipped with facial recognition technology. This video from the maker of an AI-powered body cam demonstrates how the technology could be used to find a missing child. Not shown, how they could use it to track suspects. Meanwhile, cities across the country have embraced a predictive policing approach that focuses not on high-risk people, but on high-risk places, putting entire neighborhoods under watch. Critics worry it's targeting areas that are already over-policed.
The problem is that if you're already over-policing in a certain neighborhood, you're going to be predisposed to seeing data that's now going to tell you to keep putting more and more officers in those areas.
Bari Williams is an attorney who advises startups in the Bay Area.
I absolutely love technology. I work in the sector, but I think that we need to be mindful of how technology is created and how it's used and how it can be used in various purposes.
One popular tool focused on where crime will happen is Predpol. Today, more than 60 departments nationwide use it to forecast crimes like burglaries and car break-ins.
Everybody has their predictive policing already?
In the LAPD's Foothill Division, one of the first to use Predpol, it starts with the daily roll call. Officers get a map labeled with 10 to 20 hotspots they're encouraged to visit during their shifts. The more time they spend in those areas, the more likely they are to deter crime, or so the thinking goes.
That's good work.
This is today's predictive policing boxes. We're going to cover the 3 boxes that are in my area, in the north end of Pacoima.
Predpol forecasts crimes based on patterns from the last several years. It analyzes 3 elements of crime data: the crime type, the location, and the time. It then runs them through an algorithm and spits out 500 by 500 foot hotspots or boxes that officers should keep an eye on.
Right now we're experiencing a lot of property crime. That's what our predictive policing boxes are going to focus on.
Officer Steve Nunez has worked in the Foothill Division for 16 years. What are you looking for as we cruise around?
Looking for anything suspicious. Even sometimes looking for cars that look like they've been sitting here for a while. Anyone that is maybe trying to open car doors. Just anything that just doesn't fit. At first, we were kind of, I don't know if we're going to follow this predictive policing and having a computer tell us where to go.
But he's become a believer in Predpol.
Crime has gone down dramatically, so part of it, I believe, is predictive policing. Part of it's just the community engagement. It has to do with just the officers going out there and being proactive, don't leave it up here for like a month and all that stuff like that. So like I said, I won't impound it, you know, because I know it's his, so I'll let you guys deal with it. But, you know, I mean, at least get it off the streets. All right, man. Cool, man. You guys be good, all right?
The fundamental question here is, can we trust the data and algorithms that police are using to predict crimes?
Algorithms and big data models simply take inputs, crunch them up to create outputs. So if your inputs are biased, your outputs are going to be biased.
You don't need to look far to find troubling examples of algorithmic bias. In 2016, Microsoft introduced an AI chatbot called Tay, which quickly started repeating racist and anti-Semitic comments it picked up on Twitter. Then there were those problematic Google autocompletes, which are based on popular human searches. In January, a Google search for Islamists are turned up results like Islamists are evil, and Hitler is turned up Hitler is my hero. And there was also the time the Google Images algorithm mistook black people for gorillas. So what happens if prejudice data makes its way into police work?
It's a 7.
For Bari Williams, that risk is personal.
The biggest fear I have with predictive policing in my son is that he will be profiled. I'm sure he probably will experience that at some point in his life already, but I don't need something making that easier. Did you have a good day?
Williams lives in Oakland, a city that so far has decided not to use PredPol. Still, she says the image of black children being fatally mislabeled as a threat by police looms large in her mind.
In the case of Tamir Rice, you have a child who was playing with a BB gun, and the police just rolled up and within 3 seconds shot him. And that is a real concern for me. My son and I like to go certain places, and if the neighborhoods are not awesome and predictive policing is telling you to send more police into that area and we're there, I'm not gonna allow my child to go play in the street. I'm not gonna allow my child to run in front of me. I don't want anything to give the police a false sense that he could have been engaged in something he wasn't.
The activists and the police are all coming from the point that makes sense for them. I think from a community perspective that feels over-policed, that feels that there is racial injustice in policing, it's wise to be concerned about this new technology that's going to give police more power. If you're a police officer, you understand you have an incredibly difficult job. And adding new technologies might help. You kind of want to get the benefit of the doubt.
We've had crime rises over the last few years. We've had crime reduction. It is a tool. It's not a panacea for crime, and that's what a lot of people believe. They believe that you utilize PredPol, crime's going to go away. False. That is a farce. That is not going to happen. So it's an indicator. It takes you there. It could happen. It could not. It's a probability.
The question about whether predictive policing works is still open.
One study found that PredPol's algorithms correctly predicted crime just 4.7% of the time. Still, that's higher than the human analysts who got it right just 2.1% of the time. It's worth noting that the study was done by the company's co-founder. And then there's the question of bias.
You start coming into the Colma area, which is south of the 210 freeway. Now you're dealing with predominantly Hispanic families, a lot of immigrants in that area.
And I noticed there are more boxes there. The day we visited, most of the PredPol boxes in the Foothill Division were in Hispanic neighborhoods, but police say that's by chance.
I do believe the data is objective. We're simply using the crime numbers, the type of crime, the location, and the time of when we thought that crime or when that crime was reported to us. It has nothing to do with anybody's ethnic makeup or the neighborhood or anything else.
According to research by PredPol's co-founder, their algorithms don't lead to more arrests of minorities than human policing. But that isn't exactly comforting to critics of traditional policing.
The issue is that crime tends to happen in all areas, but the problem is that marginalized groups are where police are usually congregating.
And there is evidence of that disparity. Today, Black and Hispanic Americans account for about a quarter of the total population, but make up more than half of the prison population. And there may not be a more infamous symbol of unjust policing than the Rodney King beating, which happened right here in LAPD's Foothill Division 27 years ago. That beating and the riots sparked by the acquittal of the officers involved ignited a national conversation around police brutality that continues today. Members of the LAPD say that predictive policing is helping them move forward as an organization.
Instead of being an occupying force like we were referred to once upon a time where there was a problem in the area and we had to come in with tons of cops, we're trying to be more strategic.
But activists like the members of the Youth Justice Coalition say that new technologies will only make things worse.
It's basically allowing them to racially profile Black and brown youth.
I lived in a low-income neighborhood, mostly black and brown people that live there, and there's always police on my block. What Predpool, I think, is doing is targeting communities that they've already been targeting.
Stop LAPD Spying Coalition is still pursuing their lawsuit against the LAPD. And for now, the most that concerned citizens can hope for is more transparency.
If there was a dialogue between these police departments and the communities that they're serving, explaining to them how they're using these data points, how they're using this technology, it may go a long way.
Predictive policing is here to stay. And so what we should do is figure out how to identify the risks, see them coming, and address them beforehand, before it's too late.
Okay, so that means we should have a mass shooter prediction as well, because we know how the mass shooters always be black and Latino.
Well, I guess I'll just do the news. Facebook shares slide after reports of data misuse. Well, imagine that. Imagine. I guess they have a little black eye here. No, I mean...
Welcome to Gradient, a suite of tools for machine learning and AI developers. The platform was designed to...
Tesla's autopilot crash caused lawmakers to consider the impact that certain individuals would commit a crime.
All right, so we just we started listening to this one guy tell us about new technologies that are going to be rolling out in 2019. So now I've heard of I forgot the other system, but it's kind of like Skynet, where it's this like super ultra high resolution camera that's in the sky, and it can take pictures and video of large areas, and it can read people's walk, because it's looking down at you, so it doesn't use facial recognition technology. It has some type of movement technology where it can recognize you from the top down. And so I got to remember what that system is called, because they're already using that system. And so if you have this ultra high resolution camera that can pinpoint anybody in a city at any given time, and then you have this new palindrome thought crime prediction, predicting software algorithms. Yo, so the world is getting crazy, son.
The governments implement predictive policing technology to find the likelihood that certain individuals would commit a crime in the future. Tesla's autopilot crash caused lawmakers to consider the implications of self-driving cars more deeply. Google employees protested against Project Maven, which was aimed at using AI to help the U.S. military improve its efficiency. Cambridge Analytica came under fire after it was reported that Facebook gave them access to the private data of more than 50 million users, which they used for political purposes. Zuckerberg had to testify in front of Congress, which showed how embarrassingly inept lawmakers were at understanding this technology. The EU enacted GDPR, which required businesses to protect the personal data and privacy of EU citizens. Many other countries followed, and China supercharged its economic growth by applying AI to, well, everything. 2018 was quite a wild ride, and I'm expecting 2019 to be an even wilder one. My first prediction is that client-side training will become a linchpin of AI model learning within edge, mobile, and robotic process automation applications. Several iOS apps have already started using device-side AI training, ensuring that Face ID recognizes users consistently, that people's pictures are accurately grouped in the Photos app, and that the keyboard can predict what you'll type. We'll see the pendulum in AI shift.
Yeah, that's everything. So when you post a picture on Facebook, it asks you now, like, oh, is this that person? Is this that person? And most of the time they're right. It's like, holy shit, there's some really good facial recognition from a picture. And the iPhone 10, you can just open it with your face now. So facial recognition is easy. It's like easy software now. And like he said, like even AI algorithms can recognize people's face and match their face to their names.
A focus on the cloud to the edge. Cost drivers for this trend are firstly bandwidth, meaning semi-connected environments and expensive cellular considerations, as well as storage, which reduces the amount of data sent to the cloud. This means that the dominant AI development frameworks will be re-engineered for superior cloud-to-edge performance, optimizing its runtime for whatever platform it's running on. Intel's popular deep learning USB stick demonstrated one step in this direction. And whether at the cloud or at the edge, Kubernetes orchestrated containers will become an integral part of the AI pipeline. Kubernetes is an open source project for automating deployment, scaling, and management of containerized applications. Containers gained traction in AI because they're a lot more space efficient than virtual machines. In 2018, lots of AI tool vendors started supporting the deployment of containerized statistical models inside of cloud-native computing environments. In 2019, even more will support deployment of containerized AI models for orchestration across Kubernetes clusters and increasingly heterogeneous pipelines. Kubeflow by Google is one project that does this well, and it will be a likely target that tool vendors will implement. And as AI gets deployed everywhere, upskilling non-AI professionals to work with AI will become an even more crucial part of any workforce strategy. Literally, keep calm and learn AI. Thus, a new class of tools like AutoML, which streamlines and automates part of the process for creating AI models, will democratize AI even further for these people. In 2019, AutoML will improve such that any supervised learning task, meaning one where a label is involved, will be able to have algorithmic selection and hyperparameter optimization confidently automated by a computer. It won't be a replacement for the ML toolbox, just another tool to include in it. Supervised learning is currently the dominant approach in AI, but it often requires the labor-intensive and time-consuming process of getting humans to manually annotate data. There are also limits on what it can do. We need a better way to bridge the gap between representation learning and causal reasoning. In 2019, research attention will turn away from supervised learning and towards unsupervised and reinforcement learning. For example, a recent paper titled Unsupervised Neural Machine Translation showed that unsupervised learning can help solve language translation. The problem with supervised translation is that you need parallel sentences to show an algorithm to directly map words from a source text in, say, English into a target text, like Hindi. The paper showed that by training a joint embedding space between an encoder model and a decoder model, a weak form of unsupervised translation could be learned. This was an inspiring step in the right direction, and we'll see more of that this year. We'll also see more of a popularization of reinforcement learning techniques. Intel Coach, RayRL, Google Dopamine. We'll start to see more of these RL libraries being incorporated into enterprise environments. We'll see more on the use of imitation learning, where agents learn directly from the human supervisor, and we'll also see evolutionary strategies being used to solve challenges faced in RL. Expect much more data-efficient RL algorithms, since all of us don't have hundreds of GPUs like DeepMind does, except for this guy. Training AlphaGo on a single GPU will likely become a reality. In 2018, the deepfakes algorithm awakened the public to just how powerful generative models could be. Even The Hollywood Reporter reached out to interview me about the potentials last year. This technology will mature in 2019 and will likely see the first major political scandal that uses it occur. We'll also see a company use a generative model to automatically create digital walkthroughs for house buyers, museum tours, or even generate content for video games. Basically, the tools for generative modeling will continue to improve, and all of these incredible learning algorithms can be sped up by certain types of hardware. Quantum processors are one great candidate for this. D-Wave released its Quantum API, IBM and Rigetti invited more developers to use their Quantum API, and we'll start seeing at least a few examples of enterprise applications using quantum computing to speed up their machine learning algorithms. There's a lot of promise around using quantum chips to speed up training time for certain ML algorithms like variational autoencoders. And quantum won't be the only hardware we'll see progress on. All sorts of AI systems on chips will dominate the hardware accelerator wares. In 2019, we'll see a steady stream of fresh hardware innovations in GPUs, Tensor Core processing units, field programmable gate arrays, and so on. They'll come to market and support faster and more efficient AI processing. And companies will increasingly use this technology for social good. After the dark cloud that Cambridge Analytica cast on the community last year, society is demanding that companies have a higher social purpose. In 2019, we will see an increase in initiatives like Google's AI for Social Good program and Microsoft's AI for Good initiative. Companies will have to adapt, not just morally, but their business models as well. They'll either become more data-driven in their decision-making or not, and be disrupted by those that do. Lastly, AI will create more jobs than it takes. According to Gartner, 1.8 million jobs will be lost to automation, with manufacturing in particular singled out, but too early in education, healthcare, and the public sector. That totally makes sense, as the vast troves of health data, the need for personalized education, and various societal problems all point in this direction. There is so much to be excited for in 2019. 3 things to remember. AI in 2018 was characterized by fine-tuning architectures in deep reinforcement learning, natural language processing, and generative modeling. AI in 2019 will be characterized by more client-side training tools, advances in unsupervised learning, reinforcement learning, and much better AI hardware. Oh, and prepare for more data regulations to be enacted across the globe. We're all waking up to the power and potential of data. I and the rest of the School of AI wish you a very happy New Year, Wizards. 2019 will be our time to shine. What's one goal you have this year? Share it with me in the comments section. And please subscribe for more programming videos. For now, I've got a course to plan. So, thanks for watching.
Yeah, that shit is crazy. I say living in this time now where you have, millions of people working on the same problem, all in every country. Everybody's working on the same problem, like ever since the space race. Everybody's like, how can we do it? And now it's this whole AI thing. Quantum leap. What's wrong, Ziggy?
world headed in the next 5 years, and what can you actually do about it? We already have the technology to read the inner voice in your mind, so imagine controlling your phone with your inner thoughts, writing your report without a keyboard, playing video games without a controller, or walking into stores that already know what you want to buy. Imagine seeing the world with augmented reality and commuting a bit safer, working a bit faster, exercising the way that's actually fun. What if we could restore someone's ability to walk, give someone a sense of touch, enhance eyesight, fight disease, or modify? Where's the world headed in the next 5 years, and what can you actually do about it? We already have the technology to read the inner voice in your mind, so imagine controlling your phone with your inner thoughts, writing your report without a keyboard, playing video games without a controller, or walking into stores that already know what you want to buy. Imagine seeing the world with augmented reality and commuting a bit safer, working a bit faster, exercising in a way that's actually fun. What if we could restore someone's ability to walk, give someone a sense of touch, enhance eyesight, fight disease, or modify DNA? What happens when robots start building our homes, delivering our news, pouring our beers, and driving us home? These are not examples of the far distant future. These are examples of what is possible right now. And with artificial intelligence, the pace of human progress is about to become not so human at all. So how much is your world about to change? At Trend Hunter, we spend a lot of time thinking about this because we use artificial intelligence, big data, and human researchers to help about 600 of the world's millionaires, billionaires, CEOs, and NASA to predict. And so far, we've worked on about 10,000 projects. We've learned a lot of insight that I think could help you, and that's what I want to talk about today. Today, I want to reshape the way that you think about your future. So let's do this. Are you ready? When we dive into the super future, there's one particular category that jumps out a lot. And if I was to tell you of all of our megatrends, the one that you need to study much more deeply, even if you don't today, the one that impacts you in every possible industry, your life, your kids, it is artificial intelligence. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper than I did last year, and today I'm going to talk about what I call the AI mechanized future, which is more specifically what happens when you start combining AI with interface, mind reading, bioenhancement, 3D printing, sustainability, and robots. Does that sound like fun? Okay, and if it gets scary, I always like to just put up some dancing robots, so just so you know, there's some psychological decompression going on. We hear the word AI, and there's a little bit of a misunderstanding. There's a couple things about it. First of all, we only say that something is AI when it's brand new. AI already exists and is prevalent in our life in a lot of different ways, from the recommendations when you swipe left or right to your entire news feed, and how that nicely shows you just the things that align to your own political beliefs. But if you really want to understand where our world's going, there's 3 terms you want to add to your cocktail vocabulary, and basically that's to no longer just say AI, but to think of ANI, AGI, and ASI. So first of all, we see AI already in a lot of different ways that you heard mentioned today in different keynotes. There's personal assistants, there's lawyers, doctors, autonomous drivers, investors, facial recognition, all that wonderful stuff. But it's already been around for some amount of time already. So we're not going to get too deep in it, because where I'm going to really be pushing in a super future is what happens in 7 to 15 years from now when we reach artificial general intelligence. Artificial general intelligence is the idea that one system could actually do pretty much anything that a human could. So it's not having a specialist AI doctor over here or an AI lawyer over here that's all a different robot. It's one system that you could almost interact with like a human that could help you in any potential way. As we start to get smarter and try to think about how our systems are developed, there's one cartoon I saw that really helps articulate it the best. And it's that right now we see AI happening and we're like looking at it thinking, wow, that funny robot can do, monkey tricks. And we think about AI kind of in that world. What we're not really prepared for is to understand that 7 to 15 years from now, we will reach a day where AI reaches the level of what you might consider a dumb human. And you'll still be like, oh, it's not bad, but it still makes mistakes. The weird part is when it reaches that particular day, the next day it reaches the level of Einstein, and the day after that is a little bit different. And this is particularly why AI is the most important thing for each of you to study, even if you might not consider yourself a technologist, because this sort of warps every aspect of human life. The factors that limit or accelerate us getting to AGI would be power, data, and intelligence. The first two are really simple, the third one is more complex. Just to put it in perspective, the IBM Summit is already much, much faster and more complex than what a human brain can do in possibly every single way. So this idea of power and performance has already been solved. To put it this way, if every person on the Earth completed one calculation per second, everyone on Earth, all 7 billion of us, one calculation per second, it would take us 305 days to catch up to what the Summit could do in a single second. So the best way to kind of internalize that this is not what is impeding us from getting to AI. That's kind of why I put that there. When it comes to data, imagine that more data was created in this year than in the last 5,000 years, but humans have only been able to analyze 0.5% of it. So data is also not the limiter to AI reaching artificial general intelligence. In fact, if you were a computer with AI capabilities plugged into the internet today, you would have every language, fact, Wikipedia page, math, formula, physics equation, bioengineering feed, piece of news, trending data, market best practice, neuropsychological insight on how to manipulate and persuade people, and every hacked email, and about 7 billion emails so far, every stock market technical and info, and every person in this room, if not the entire planet. That's a lot of data, so AI is not limited by that. So really, the only mystery that's trying to be solved is how to make a system that could teach itself more intelligently. And effectively, there are people trying in every possible category. Some are trying to recreate what a human brain's exact structure might look like. Some are hoping that training a computer to train a computer to train a computer gets us to a further spot. And in short, billions and billions of dollars this year is being poured into the attempts to get to this feat alone. So with that said then, let's just note that artificial superintelligence is, if you fast forward a little bit more, it's very difficult to imagine that 10 or 15 years from now you have a human-like computer that can do everything we can do at paces that are millions of times faster with access to every piece of information instantly. That's a very difficult thing to comprehend. But once a system's at that level and it's training itself and you advance another 10 or 20 years, it gets to a part that humans actually can't understand. We can't even get there, and it's uncomfortable, but effectively an ASI-1 system will reign supreme. At that level, pretty much all AI scientists agree there is only one system in the world. So who will make it? Interesting question. But I'm going to skip that part because right now my computer still can't recognize where my printer is, so I think we're all right. Our robot dystopia isn't here yet. So that said, let's start diving into the combinations because this is where it gets really fun. I'm going to show you examples of things that are available right now, and that will have your imagination going wild for what happens when everything really starts to combine and accelerate. There are robots that can take your trash out, finally. Robot bartenders, my kind of robot. Entire bars serviced by robot bartenders. There's a number of different applications of receptionists, from hotels to malls to airports. Domino's Pizza, our lovely client of about 9 years, has a Domino's AI robot for pizza delivery, and they also have drones. There are also robots that can take your order instead of you having to talk to someone in a fast food restaurant. Farmers are using robots that can actually harvest, identify what's happening in the crop, survey the landscape, and then much more efficiently pick the optimal times for harvest. And that leads us to robotic bees, which are being studied in some sense to figure out what happens if we lose the bees. And NASA actually recently had a contract to make a bee-like size figure that would go to Mars to be able to inspect around with a ton of small, low-cost bees. NASA actually then much order instead of you having to talk to someone in a fast food restaurant. Farmers are using robots that can actually harvest, identify what's happening in the crop, survey the landscape, and then much more efficiently pick the optimal times for harvest. And that leads us to robotic bees, which are being studied in some sense to figure out what happens if we lose the bees. And NASA actually recently had a contract to make a bee-like size figure that would go to Mars to be able to inspect around with a ton of small, low-cost bees. This might lead you to...
So basically they said that we're going to lose the bees. Holy shit. I've never heard that right there. Oh, crap. Oh, let's make some artificial bees just in case we lose the bees. No, you're making artificial bees because you're pretty sure you've killed the bees. All of them. On the entire planet. Oh my God. What?
Hello, I'm Simon Whistler, you're watching Top 10's Net, and in the video today we're looking at the top 10 things that would happen if bees died out. Number 10, honey will disappear.
Obviously, without bees, we would no longer get honey. Humans have been harvesting honey for about 9,000 years. Beekeeping agriculture because bees pollinated crops, which allowed them to bloom and produced honey as well as wax. While most people think of honey as something you eat, it also has a bunch of different uses. Notably, it is used as an ingredient in the cosmetic industry. It helps keep your skin healthy and is great for the scalp. It's also effective as a natural remedy for treating cuts and burns, so it's found in balms. Another major use of honey is cough medicine and lozenges. The honey helps both the taste of the cough aids and it helps soothe the throat. Honey is so diverse that in all the ways that honey is used, the average American uses 1.3 pounds of honey every year. Honey is also a $300 million industry that employs thousands of people, so without bees, one of the healthiest and most versatile foods in history will become a thing of the past.
Number 9, many fruits and vegetables will simply stop growing.
Bees play a vital role in the world's ecosystem. According to a report by the United Nations, of the 100 crop species that provide 90% of the world's food supply, over 70% are pollinated by bees. According to the BBC, half of all the food in the grocery store would be gone if bees disappeared. This includes such everyday staples as almonds, apples, avocados, cashews, blueberries, grapes, peaches, peppers, strawberries, tangerines, walnuts, watermelons, and, probably worst of all, coffee. Of course, the disappearance of these foods would have far-reaching and dire consequences, which we will explore later on in the list. So feel free to take a minute to mourn the possible loss of coffee before moving on to more bad news.
Number 8, pollination by humans.
One thing we may be able to do to save a few of the plants is pollinate them by hand. This is already being done in China, where they are suffering from a shortage of bees. Workers in southwest China take buckets full of pollen and paintbrushes, and they go through apple and pear orchards, pollinating each blossom by hand by painting the pollen onto them. Children are used to get the blossoms at the top of the tree. If bees were to completely die out, humans could use this method to pollinate some fruits and vegetables, but it will only be done on certain crops, especially those that are incredibly valuable, like coffee. It couldn't be done on all crops simply because there aren't enough people to pollinate all the plants that are currently pollinated by bees, mostly because plants can only be pollinated in a small window of time and humans are too slow and simply aren't as efficient as swarms of bees that have been pollinating crops for thousands of years.
Number 7, dairy products would disappear.
An additional problem that humans will face in a world without bees stems from the fact that we aren't the only ones who eat plants that are pollinated by them. Another major consumer is dairy cows. They need about 100 pounds of food every day, and they have a rather complex diet. Most of what they eat, like alfalfa hay, needs to be pollinated by bees. Without the alfalfa, there wouldn't be enough food for dairy cows, meaning things like butter, dairy milk, and cheese would just disappear. Sheep and goats also eat pollinated food, so don't expect either of those to replace cows. In fact, we may start to notice this becoming a problem in the near future. Almond hulls, a waste byproduct of almonds, are often added to dairy cow feed to make the food less expensive, which in turn makes dairy cheaper. However, almonds are heavily dependent on bees, and with the bee numbers dwindling, almond production will most likely decrease as well. One other way this will be a problem is that dairy cows are also used for beef. About 17% of all beef comes from dairy cows. Without dairy cows, beef prices would go through the roof.
Number 6, cotton wouldn't grow.
Not all the plants that bees pollinate are something we eat. They also pollinate cotton, which is a staple of the clothing industry. Can you even imagine a world without cotton? There is a good chance that you are wearing something that is made from cotton, or at least contains some cotton at this very moment. A few clothing items that contain cotton are denim, t-shirts, underwear and socks. It's also used in other everyday items like bed sheets, shoelaces, disposable diapers and toilet paper. While we can make clothing that is similar to cotton like polyester, the problem is that new demand for these synthetic fabrics will put a tremendous strain on the materials needed to make them, and they are not as plentiful as cotton is today. Needless to say, clothing in a post-bee world will be much different and probably much more expensive. So if you're planning on throwing away that old t-shirt, you may want to hold on to it until you're sure the bees are going to stick around.
Number 5. So what would we eat in a post-bee world?
You may be wondering what we will eat if the bees go away. As we saw, cows and beef will be affected, but how about pigs and chicken? The good news is pigs will pretty much eat anything, including dead people, and chickens eat non-bee pollinated food as well. That means that pork and chicken will likely become the staple proteins in many people's diets. As for crops, wheat, corn, soybean and rice do not need to be pollinated by insects, so they will still be plentiful. A few everyday staple fruits and vegetables that were pollinated by bees will also survive with human intervention. Potatoes, tomatoes and carrots only need a small amount of pollination. However, the crop production would drop significantly. Also, you can say goodbye to a lot of different cooking oils like canola, coconut, almond and sesame, which will no longer exist.
So I see Elevate almost like mental exercises. It's like taking your brain to the gym. I'm seeing myself improve in different ways that I didn't know I could.
Number 4. The cost of food will skyrocket.
One thing you've probably gathered through this list is that a lot of fruits and vegetables won't grow anymore, food will be scarce, and while humans could pollinate plants, like we previously mentioned, that is only going to make food even more expensive. We don't even have to wait for the bees to disappear to experience this. We've already seen it happen in places like Scotland. In the winter of 2012, more than a third of the honeybee colonies were destroyed. This led to increased food prices simply because once something becomes scarce, the more expensive it becomes. This is especially true for necessities. If bees keep dying off the way they are, there will be a steady increase in the price of plants that bees pollinate, like apples, cotton and coffee, until there are no bees left. And then who knows how much it will cost for a cup of coffee that was hand-pollinated.
Number 3. Malnutrition will be a huge problem.
Humans are complex machines and we need different vitamins and nutrients to stay healthy. This complexity would become a huge problem if bees were to go extinct. In 2011, a study from UC Santa Barbara's National Center for Ecological Analysis and Synthesis found that across the planet, bee-pollinated crops provide the majority of the lipids, a large portion of the minerals calcium, fluoride and iron, vitamin A, C and E. Without the foods, we physically wouldn't do well. Vitamin A is needed for the immune system and night vision. Without vitamin C, scurvy could become an epidemic, and while a lack of vitamin E doesn't hurt us, we need it to help with the immune system. Many people would also suffer from iron deficiency. All of this would make us sickly, tired and weak all the time. Wounds would take longer to heal and will keep opening up. Some people will have problems fighting the common cold. What is truly ironic is that honey helps with both of those problems. If all of that wasn't bad enough, the foods that are pollinated by bees also contain nutrients that lower the risk of cancer and heart disease, meaning there could be elevated levels of both.
Number 2. There'll be a possible worldwide economic crash.
Without bees, the world's economy is going to take a massive hit. There are going to be industries like coffee, cotton and food production that just wouldn't exist anymore. This would have far-reaching consequences. For some perspective, let's look at what would happen in the United States. The US is the third biggest producer of cotton, a $21 billion a year industry that employs 125,000 people, and that industry would simply vanish. As we discussed in Entry 7, the dairy industry would probably also disappear. Currently, there are over 47,000 dairy farms in all 50 states. While we couldn't find an overall figure for the dairy industry in the US, we did find the figure for its largest dairy producer, Wisconsin. It contributes $43.4 billion annually. This doesn't even include companies who make dairy products like Kraft, Saputo and Nestle, who would probably fold without dairy. The reason the dairy industry would collapse is because alfalfa wouldn't grow. Amazingly, just growing food for cows is a $10 billion industry in the United States. Those are just 3 industries, and we could go on about apples, canola, almonds and so on. But another problem we want to focus on is that this is just the US. Other economies throughout the world would also be devastated. Take, for instance, the $81 billion coffee industry. What would happen to developing countries like Ethiopia and Indonesia that rely heavily on exporting coffee? Needless to say, without bees, the world's economy would collapse, just like a colony.
Number 1. Famines throughout the world.
The good news is the demise of the bees probably wouldn't bring about a cannibalistic apocalypse where everyone starves to death. Darn. right? However, that said, famines are likely to happen, especially in developing countries. The reason that humanity will survive is because food crops like corn, wheat, rice, and soybeans grow without insect help. However, it would take a while to switch over to these crops. Our best hope would be that if bees died off gradually, this would give us more time to prepare new sustainable food sources. If all the bees were to die off tomorrow, it would put a tremendous strain on resources while farms were converted to grow corn, wheat, rice, and soybeans. During that time, famines would be likely. Without bees, it would be hard to sustain our current population, which is still growing. This simply comes down to the fact that food availability will drop drastically and costs will increase, which means less access to food for many people. Perhaps the most terrifying aspect here is that bees don't even have to disappear completely for this to be a big problem. One of the big issues we face right now is that the human population is increasing, but the bee population is dwindling. This means there's going to be less food and cotton, but more people to feed and clothe. Having a greater demand is never good when it comes to life's essentials. So while humanity would be able to survive the demise of the bees, the only question is, do you really want to live in a world without wine, cheese, ice cream, and coffee?
So I really hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up below this video, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Also, over there on the right are a couple of other videos you might enjoy if you enjoyed this one, and thank you for watching.
Efficiently pick the optimal times for harvest. Using robots that can actually harvest, identify what's happening in the crop, survey the landscape, and then much more efficiently pick the optimal times for harvest. And that leads us to robotic bees, which are being studied in some sense to figure out what happens if we lose the bees. And NASA actually recently had a contract to make a bee-like size figure that would go to Mars to be able to inspect around with a ton of small, low-cost bees. This might lead you to think there's also military applications that are happening, and that's where I would say this is kind of a dancing robot to make you feel comfortable, but it probably doesn't. So I'll just more simply wrap up the robot part by saying, what robot would you like to help you with your job? Nice and easy one. All right, let's ante it up. Next up, we start talking about interface, how we interact with the machine. In our minds, we tend to think it's going to be a humanoid, though it's not necessarily going to be that. Though, as you saw in the Volvo example earlier in one of our presentations, even the little kids pointed out that if you have a robot, but you can know which way it's looking, it makes us humans feel a lot more comfortable. So based on that, we've seen everything from virtual Instagram influencers, which were in Gil's presentation, to Erica. Erica is an AI robot, but more importantly, I would think of her as the epitome of a project in the works where there's an entire team of people trying to make her better. I'm going to show you a video of her, but she's interactive, autonomous, has depth perception, facial recognition, fully interactive, knows when you walk in the room, and is a sum of everything that we currently know in AI put in a humanoid form. Here's her thoughts on what it's like to be Erica.
I believe robots like me will be very important in the future because it will be possible to automate the uninteresting and tedious parts of life so people can focus on the creative and fulfilling things. I think that robots are almost like the children of humanity. You are the ones who create us, guide us, and teach us about the world. And in return, I hope we can help you with your work, take care of you when you are old and sick, and help to make society a little bit better for everyone.
I think you could remix that with a different music and a different voice and scare the hell out of me, just to be clear. That's Erica. Now, any fans of Westworld in the room? Anyone watch Westworld? So Westworld wanted to make their own sort of version of Erica, but being a Hollywood movies production company, they actually wanted to make something more realistic, using all the Hollywood makeup techniques, and then they put him in a bar to see how he would do at launching their next episode series, while also seeing how people interact with them. And here's what happened.
What are your thoughts on the impending humanoid robot invasion?
It was done on the spot a little bit, I don't know, very strange. My first experience of talking to a robot, I guess.
We joined it for a drink, and it was quite a bizarre experience. A little bit creepy, actually. I can't say I really liked it.
Amazing, and I think one day they may take over these robots. Who knows?
Just stare at that. Just take that in. And when we ask you for your beer next, are you really comfortable with us at all now? So instead, you'll just have to settle for robots right now that can play ping pong with you, making currently the most boring ping pong game ever played. A number of you probably already saw this. This is the one thing I almost hesitated to put in because it's a little bit viral, but it's also probably the most impactful example of interface to watch and think of in the context of this day you've had talking about the future.
So what you're going to hear is the Google Assistant actually calling a real salon to schedule an appointment for you. Let's listen.
How can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a woman's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second. Sure, what time are you looking for around? At 12 p.m. We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.? Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for? Just a woman's haircut for now. Okay, we have it 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. is fine. Okay, what's her first name? The first name is Lisa. Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd. Okay, great. Thanks. Great. Have a great day. Bye.
Give it up for Google. Hey, that was almost a test, because here we're still creeped out, but at Google, they're like, yeah! No possible bad consequences. This is also what happens. Does anyone have a Google Home or an Alexa and wonder why it doesn't recognize? You're like, hey, please play any song on Spotify. The weather is, damn it. They're obviously running a different version here than I have, but this is the example of how well Google Assistant could understand someone with an accent or where the conversation is a bit more confusing.
How may I hear you?
Hi, I'd like to reserve a table for Wednesday the 7th.
For 7 people?
It's for 4 people.
4 people when?
Next Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Oh, actually we reserve for like after like 5 people. For 4 people you can come.
How long is the wait usually to be seated?
When tomorrow or weekday or?
For next Wednesday, the 7th.
Oh no, it's not too busy. You can come for 4 people, okay?
Oh, I gotcha. Thanks.
Futures here. Later on, one extra level of interface, there's something called Deepfakes, which was Google DeepMind had an open API that you could use. A whole bunch of people started using it and realizing that you could reskin anybody's face onto any movie star in movies. So there's versions of every possible movie with Nicolas Cage as the actor for all those that like Nicolas Cage, including Derek, our CTO, somewhere in this room. Here's what the deepfakes look like. So if you watch it, what's sort of interesting is imagine the implications if someone did that with a president's face. Imagine going to a Hollywood movie and knowing you could put your own face on an avatar. Or imagine that your personal AI assistant could be Nicolas Cage. Pretty dope future. How long until you can't distinguish a robot from a human? This brings us to mind reading. And last year I showed you thought-controlled video games, and they're already available for purchase. You can buy one and you can try and think your way through a video game. In this case, it eliminates the need to have any exercise at all because you can pretend you're kayaking without even moving your thumbs or fingers. That's human progress at its finest. Alter Ego from MIT Media Lab takes things one step further, which is that it can read the voice in your head. So does anyone want to come up to the stage and we'll read out what you're actually thinking? Anybody? In this video, you're going to see how the idea of your own narrative can be used to interface with your device. So instead of going through your phone, you would say what you want to have figured out, and that gets figured out for you. So in this example, here's one of the designers, and he is scanning through to basically pick his movies, but he's actually having to talk to it. It doesn't read his mind to the level of knowing what he wants, but he says, I want to know the time. It comes back. One of the cooler applications, I thought, was They showed him playing games or going to the grocery store, being able to do the quick math, do the tally, figure out what things are going to cost, and you can see he's actually getting the running total as he navigates his way through. That already works, so you're talking currently about what's available in 2018, which is really intense. Going the other way, the Modius actually sends a neural impulse to your head to reconfigure your body's use of fat in order to start processing your fat immediately, and maybe it works. I don't know. I'm not ready yet to do this, but it's already available on Indiegogo. So the question, of course, I already asked, what if you want someone hooking up a brain scanner to your brain, because that's currently 2018. So the question that's more intense for me is what happens when I can read your brain from 5 feet away? Can I have that in my store and read what your order is? It's going to be some permission, people. Cool. So what happens when other countries with different interests in mind decide to allow this to progress? Well, that's where the data scientists will want to be. So it will happen. Who do you want developing it? Should it be Russia? Should it be America? What are your thoughts? Bio-enhancement. Watch this guy being able to walk for the first time in obviously a long time. Pretty cool. That was a demo at CES, at the last CES. We saw the bionic suit in the last presentation, but here's a different example of an exoskeleton. It's recently been funded, but it's called seismic-powered clothing, to try and show a more wearable device that might make the world more accessible for boomers as they age.
I needed a shift, and that shift was seismic. A fusion of apparel and robotics. A drive to get up and out there. The confidence to stand tall.
Intense. Next up, eyeballs. So the starting point at which you'd want to enhance your eyes would be if you wanted to have better eyesight, not need contact lenses. But because we're already getting to that point where currently we can embed an eyeball in a blind person and allow them to see, that we've been able to do for years, it means that the next thing for you would be what extra parts do you want your eye to be able to do? Do you want to actually have infrared vision? Do you want heat vision? Do you want to be able to see perfectly at night? Should you see from further? Do you want to be able to zoom? And then the last example there from an actual company working on this, there would be Wi-Fi, so you could figure out if you want to share images with your friends, and you can also take an actual mental picture. It's being worked on right now. So what features do you want in your eyes is my question to wrap up that part. Okay, 3D printing. This one will do quicker, but 3D printing has moved to a much grander scale. Not just 3D printing, but even the idea of robotic construction, I guess, as I show you here. But there are 3D printed chairs, bikes, cars, houses, buildings, bridges, shoes, casts, dresses, prosthetic arms, food, and body parts. Cool. I did that one a little faster, but I'll just end by saying, will you be intimidated when robots can 3D print new robots? Ooh. All right, next up, sustainability. We live in a world where all the companies in this room are getting better and better at identifying consumer needs to allow us to make more and more stuff. And what's happening is there's another side of it, and our waste, our e-waste, our recycling doesn't even happen in North America. It gets shipped off to China. Meanwhile, in China, where the laws have been more relaxed, there tends to be other abuses of manufacturing power, if you will. You've all seen the shareable bikes that exist in most of our cities. That was exciting. So a lot of Chinese billionaires backed that program for their own cities, and pretty soon there started becoming millions and millions and then tens of millions of waste bikes that are just piling up, and they're just never used, never ridden, to the point that that looks like it should be a lavender field, but that is not a lavender field. That is tens of millions of excessive bikes never to be ridden, and that photo could be taken in about 50 different areas of China. So this leads me then to sort of think a little bit more of the world. This year, the biggest eco theme has been ocean and ocean plastic. The currents of the ocean cause a swell that results in about 8 or 10 different places of the world having plastic in the ocean. And the biggest one is 2 times the size of Texas, to put it in perspective. So if we start thinking about our other obligations as people that are designing and creating products, the idea of sustainability, cradle to grave, where you think about what happens after, making things that last, starts to become important. The good thing is the next generation cares about this a lot, so when you align to the values of caring about this, you're absolutely aligning to the next demographic of customer. I wanted to show you a fun little way to rethink about it, to stick with you a little bit. and maybe raise the importance in your own lives. So here's a commercial from the year 2050.
The first step is to remove the insides. That's plastic, that's gross. That's why it's always good to have a second fish.
Pretty chilling, but there are people doing something about it, all sorts of people. American Express has a card made out of plastic where your points instead go to helping the ocean. There is water bottles and plastics that you can get that are made from ocean plastic. There's clothing and bathing suits made out of ocean plastic. These are ocean plastic sunglasses, Adidas shoes. These are all made of plastic. There's plastic sculptures. This is in Russia to raise awareness for the kids there. It's a giant playground. And of course, many brands are starting to capitalize on this because consumers are increasingly very, very aware. And probably the coolest thing ever is there's an 18-year-old kid. He had a TED Talk. I'm not going to play it for you. You should watch it. His name's Boyan Slat. He's on the TED stage. He gets everyone motivated. $20 million backs his idea as a first investment from the TED stage. And they deployed this week the first giant net that would go to the plastic ocean to start actually recapturing. Doesn't mean we don't have to work on our own side to stop polluting the ocean, but they're planning to cut the waste by a dramatic percentage over the next few years. So give it up for an 18-year-old kid who's solving a problem we didn't know about. So what will you do with your brand to advance sustainability? A lot of people look at AI and it seems like it's pretty daunting, it's pretty far out there. So I'll show you some of the things we did and then give you some best practices for if you want to initiate some brainstorming in your own office. So super high level, you can read more about it at trendhunter.ai. But what we've always been doing is collecting the insight and choices on now about 150 million people. But we weren't using AI to analyze until more recently. So with all these people, we kind of had a right spot to start doing machine learning. Many of you have heaps and heaps of data, depending on what industry you're in. And using machine learning, we started figuring out better ways to use AI to help with recommendations, personalizing both for clients and for visitors of the site what they would see. When you process the language of every word that's happening on your website, you can also help your workers do what they're doing. So we use this to help our researchers enhance insights and identify patterns. Obviously, if you're trying to sift through so much data, you can imagine where a little robotic help isn't so bad. If you're starting to co-create any idea, I'd actually recommend sitting together with your devs, read what your competitors are doing, and if you're already a client, then just tell us, and there's thousands of different people doing neat things, but we can filter through and do one of your custom reports on AI that might be more similar to what you're actually trying to do. So that's some high-level stuff. That's the AI mechanized future. Otherwise, the world's getting more educated, more literate. The population is growing. There's more internet users. And if you add it all up, we have 15 times larger increase in internet-connected competitors, partners, and customers compared to the year 2000. Be excited to be an innovator in the greatest period of human history. Be revolutionary. Thank you very much. If you'd like to learn more about innovation, download one of my bestsellers or the latest trend report absolutely free at jeremyguche.com. Visit me at one of Trend Hunter's epic future festivals taking place all around the globe. We gather thousands of the world's top innovators to experience and prototype their future, or join 10 million people getting better and faster with my other innovation keynotes, all about how to get better at adapting to change, faster at finding ideas, and ultimately finding those ideas that are so close within your grasp.
Let us talk about infinity.
And beyond? Or just
Imagine opening your eyes and finding yourself surrounded by water, and you cannot remember ever not being in that water.
Oh. Yo, Crown Boys. I'm good. go see if there's something to eat. Working on that vest. Yo, this joint gonna be hot, son. I'll be right back, guys.
The first question you might ask is, how did I get here? You've always been there.
What do you mean always? When did I enter the pool?
You never entered the pool. You have always been in the pool.
Okay, but where was I before I was in the pool?
That's a false question. There is no before in which you were not in the pool. You have always been in the pool.
Okay, but always like how long? Like a billion years?
No, a billion years began a billion years ago.
Okay. But I must have been born at some point. What was before me?
Oh, okay, so like, what's our communication disconnect here? There is no before you. You have always existed in the pool. Always. Forever. Infinitely.
Yamish.
Always. Okay, so the point that I'm trying to make is that there are some concepts that we humans just cannot wrap our heads around. And one of them is the idea of something having always existed and having no beginning. We just can't really grasp that concept. It just doesn't compute.
Like if I told you this road literally goes on forever, you'd be like, I don't get it, I cannot grasp infinity.
Are we there yet? Nope. Are we close? Never getting there. Driving forever. Here's another one. Try and imagine nothing. It's kind of impossible. At first you might envision nothing as darkness. But darkness is something. It's darkness. So then you might say, is nothing just empty space? Well, empty space is something. It's empty space. But here's something